What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the quartering, and the reviews are out. Well, the first wave of major mainstream journalists have decided to review Cyberpunk 2077. And before we get into that, just a quick reminder, we are pushing this week. Let's do it. This week, 1 million subscribers. We're at 980,000 right now. I'm covering video games, Hollywood, technology, YouTube issues, Twitch issues, drama, everything. 5 to 7 videos a day. Click that red subscribe button down below. Let's do 1 million. Let's hit it this week. And I'll do an amazing 1 million celebration video. Maybe I'll even do a wife reveal. Analysts and journalists on Cyberpunk 2077. Any score below 90 may trigger a negative reaction, and early reviews should not be trusted. We rounded up the facts and opinions about Cyberpunk 2077 ahead of its release. The title, first announced in 2012, has cost the company $130 million. Analysts expect the game to sell nearly 30 million copies in its first year. Reviews for different platforms may differ, but any score below 90 may trigger a negative reaction. A score of 95 or more may be a slight positive, touching 98 or more, very positive. As for a few journalists' early review scores, they arrived today. In any case, early reviews from journalists can't possibly be objective. Quote, a few press folk have privately let me know that some do already have review units of Cyberpunk. Super Rare Games PR manager, a former gaming journalist. A lot of major outlets are still waiting, though, which is odd. Well, the reviews are out. 91%. Absolutely breathtaking score. Breathtaking score. But every major outlet has found a way to be negative about this. Then we review this, we compare this to The Last of Us, which has a 93 on 121 critic reviews. This is only 38, and it continues to go up. VGC 100. The only two mixed ones, okay, are here. GameSpot, 70. GamesBeat, 60. Are you joking? And you look at these reviews, and there's absolute ton. The Washington Post, why are they reviewing video games? Cyberpunk 2077 feels like the messy and inevitable evolution of an open world design. Cyberpunk 2077, a look at the present, not the future. How about this? How about polygons? Cyberpunk 2077 is dad rock, not new wave. Cyberpunk 2077 is huge, ambitious, and safe. IGN's review is a little more normie, but you do have some good ones. Worth the wait is everything you expected it would be, and the reviews are as cringe as you would be. Here's Sophia Narwitz assembling a few of them. Cyberpunk 2077 is worth the wait. That's all you really wanted to know, right? Cringe. Here's another one. There's no option for V to be non-binary, responding to they or them. And this is an oversight in the work of speculative fiction. Non-binary pronouns are common in mainstream consciousness even today, and it's stubborn at best to imagine a future with cellular head implants, but without a more comprehensive understanding of gender. Cyberpunk 2077 is dad rock, not new wave. In my 40-plus hours in Night City, I never met a single character of significance whom the game made clear was trans. And the only one queer-coded characters I encountered was an extremely unsavory cybernetic surgeon who does extremely unsavory things. I did spot a trans flag in one of the characters' vehicles, although that hardly counts as positive trans representation. I mean, it's funny because they spend the entire article trashing the game, but then they end up giving them high scores. It's of course the game's going to end up being a 92, 93, hopefully 94, 95 if it deserves it, right? But look at Ars Technica is releasing this review after only 20 hours. Why are you releasing it now? You haven't even, you couldn't possibly have finished the game. In fact, you're at best 1/3 of the way. At best, 1/3 of the way through the game. And if you look at a lot of these other reviews, it's hilarious how, like, they try to be contrarian. They try to be negative. But ultimately, they're forced to give the game a high score. Now, I've seen Young Yaz review and several other people whose opinions on video games that I respect. And the bugs are real. And this was partially fixed by a mid-review patch that CD Projekt Red pushed out. And also we have a additional day one patch that is supposed to come out as well. But now with 43 critic reviews, as more and more of them pour in, the game remains a strong 91 overall percent. Now, I don't think, again, that giving a game a 100 out of 100 is reasonable, especially given the amount of bugs that the game will get cleaned up, I'm sure. But overall, every one of these reviews tries to suck you in with like a negative headline. Again, Cyberpunk is equal parts beautiful and messy. Didn't even play. Kyle Orland, you should be ashamed of yourself putting this review out with 20 hours admittedly. I suppose it's better that you actually admitted that. Here you have GamesBeat. A look at the present, not the future. Here you have their conclusion saying that the game is buggy and beautiful. If CD Projekt Red's core competency is writing quests, world building, and complementary pillar of the studio's works, and Cyberpunk is more evidence of this. It suggests a world of possibilities, but it's just a suggestion. It's like the food vendor that hangs out not far from V's apartment. His stall looks attractive in the Cyberpunk Blade Runner style that makes everything in the game pop. It has steam rising off the food and nice lighting. If I were walking through LA and I got hungry, I would stop and eat there. It helps contribute to the feel of the world, but that's all it does. You can't interact with the stall, eat its food, or even talk to the owner. It's just set dressing. A lot of the game is just there and to look good, and that's fine. But it means I don't want to spend a lot of time wandering around the world. If the environment primarily exists to look dope in the background while I'm doing quests, then I'll probably mostly stick to the main story, see what happens, and then bounce. It's fine to make a game like that for many. That's the promise of Cyberpunk 2077. It just wasn't the promise to me. I mean, unrealistic expectations, maybe. You always want to interact with some things, but really, you're really twisting and bending yourself to try and be negative. Cyberpunk 2077 feels like the messy and inevitable evolution of an open world design. You see a lot of these shills using that exact same wording. Messy. But they can't really find anything else wrong with it. You have here their final conclusion. Keanu Reeves, known as Johnny Silverhand, is the one constant in every Cyberpunk playthrough, and probably the game's best hook for its story. Reeves steals every scene he's in and dominates the game in ways I once won't dare spoil. Cyberpunk's most objectively great quality is when it contains hours and hours of extremely committed and multifaceted performances by Keanu Reeves. His star power and presence was not wasted here. And still other characters are brutalized in ways that for meaningless sake. It's notable that the creator of the original Cyberpunk tabletop game, Mike Pondsmith, worked closely with CDPR to retain authenticity of the game and source material. There's where some of the narrative problems start to seep in. Now, I will say there is fan service, as reported, to the fans of the original pen and paper game. And of course, you have every one of these articles brings up, my trans issues. Look, I'm not dismissive of all that, but the fact that it made its way into every single review shows kind of what they're more concerned with. It's the last thing this article ends with, right? And for years, trans activists have shown a light on its depiction, and willingly ignorance on gender can create damage from marginalized community. That's the power and danger of CDPR here. A game hasn't made me feel like this since GTA 4. The title really made me wonder about the responsibilities of creating mirror worlds, sketched from reflections of our own warped understanding in life. I'm going to need more time to wrap my thoughts around the gargantuan experience, but to play Cyberpunk 2077 is to engage in an intoxicating virtual reality where everything can feel real and maybe just a little overwhelming. Gene. But again, negative title. It feels like the messy, inevitable world. Cyberpunk. It's dad rock, not new wave. CD Projekt Red's new open world game does not exactly have a futuristic worldview. Not woke enough. Essentially, that's what this article is about. Thankfully, your character's gender is not tied with your choice of... That's what the first thing they talk about in this article. Right? Like the city it's set in, Cyberpunk 2077 may give off one impression, regarded from afar, one carefully constructed through years of marketing hype, but once players experience it close up, they'll find the truth is something else. On one hand, it's more earnest and sincere games than all its edgy marketing had suggested. On the other hand, though the world of Cyberpunk evokes a radical vision of the future, there's nothing revolutionary on offer here. Instead, it's a game obsessed with the past. Not woke enough. For elements like the inescapable dehumanization of trans people on imagery throughout the city. Are you kidding me? That's what you're worried about. Again, this fictional outrage by 7 people. That's all this, article. This entire article is difficult to take seriously because that's all they care about is the social justice issues. Now, they do say some good things about it. And that humanity is the saving grace of this alluring, yet uneven and deeply flawed game. Deeply flawed. It's got a 91 on Metacritic. I can't deny that Night City wowed me with its scale and verticility and its sense of history. But I wish I could see more people like me on the streets as someone more than objects. I wish the game's politics were more radical. Yes, I know I shouldn't look to a colossal game that it was itself produced under exploitative labor conditions to lead to the change of anti-capitalist liberation. Again, negative review because the game isn't woke enough. Cyberpunk is huge, ambitious, and safe. Again, another not woke enough. That's essentially what these people they want. They want more of their progressive politics in the video game. That's what it is. Reeves' character Johnny Silverhand, for instance, is almost purely leather-clad 20th century counterculture sketch. But there's a lot of potential for belligerent idealists getting to see his legacy, mostly hating what he finds. My favorite minor side mission, Johnny's hologram, stops to listen to a busker, prompting you to hunt down a bootleg from his old band Samurai. You get to the record-finding street vendor who's Samurai superfan, then reinciting. So the encounter never goes away, but Night City is too big to get truly weird. The encounter never goes anywhere, although Samurai plays a significant role in the story, but it's an oddly self-aware moment for the game built on capturing bygone era's cool factor. Instead of trying to drop players into an archetypical cyberpunk setting, CD Projekt Red could have pushed the idea further, imagining how an alternate retro future might evolve, and it turned out being more interesting than Cyberpunk 2077's chain-smoking gangsters and console cowboys. Not enough. The bugs thing is a legitimate complaint. IGN's review is actually moderately okay. But you'll see this. There are some positive reviews. It's everything you'd hoped it'd be. Immersively detailed, deep combat system, and breathtaking Keanu Reeves. CNET. Engadget, it's worth the wait. And again, if you look at the overwhelming amount of reviews here on Metacritic, it remains a 91%. But the woke game journalists, of course, will continue to bend and twist themselves into a knot to pretend to be offended. I mean, this GameSpot review is hilariously bad. I guarantee it was written by it was written by Kaylee Plague. Of course it was. A 70? A 70. You got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. The game is not a 70. Like, literally pathetic, transparent example of I'm just trying to write a bad review to get attention. And she's not going to get much. Johnny, you know, so I'm not going to give you any spoilers here. Let's see how it ends. I was playing it on a laptop. Well, nothing wrong with a gaming laptop, but I'm just saying you probably weren't experiencing it at its best. Playing in a laptop well above the minimum specs, while another GameSpot player experienced the same severity and frequency of bugs on an even higher-end desktop PC, your mileage may vary, but in our experience, the bugs are obtrusive and substantial across the board, often forcing us to reload saves or exit the game entirely. It's hard to get really into a world that you constantly have to leave. I agree. Again, the bugs are a reasonable complaint, and I'm hoping that day one patch will get that fixed. But then it's hard to get into Cyberpunk 2077's world in general. So much of it's superficial set dressing, and there's so much happening around you. Ads going off at all times, gunfights breaking out in the streets, texts coming in about how cars you'll never buy, and a lot of the game feels superfluous. Side quests and characters they showcase are shiny beacon, though the neon-soaked bleakness of Neon City, and they give you room to explore the best core RPG mechanics have to offer. They are what carried me through an otherwise disappointing experience. The bad. There's too much to do that isn't meaningful, so a lot of it ends up being superfluous. Superficial and often edgy aesthetic choices have no real purpose, which makes them grating rather than adding anything relevant to the world. Again, we know what they mean when they say edgy. The incorporation of different cultures and backgrounds is wildly inconsistent, from the good to inaccurate and downright offensive. The main story doesn't cohere to the rest of the game with an urgency that's at odds with everything else. Technical issues from visual bugs, full-on crashes are so pervasive it's impossible to ignore. Again, that's a reasonable thing to, hate. And I would be fine with that even costing it a 1.5. But the idea that it's a 7, that seems a little obvious that you want attention. We'll have to wait and see as more reviews continue to come in and more hot takes. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe right now. We'll talk to you again real soon.